The first light of dawn stretches slowly across the vast landscapes of South America. Mist clings to the towering peaks of the Andes, curling and twisting in delicate patterns like the fingers of a sleeping giant. Valleys lie hidden beneath soft blankets of fog. Rivers glint faintly as they carve through the earth, and ancient forests whisper in quiet, imperceptible rhythms. There is a hushed serenity here, a sense of a world that exists slightly apart from our modern perception, waiting patiently for those who take the time to notice. Even the wind moves differently in these lands, gentle yet purposeful, as if carrying secrets from centuries long past, secrets that have been waiting in silence for the softest ears. As you listen, imagine yourself standing at the edge of these forgotten places, the cool morning air brushing your skin and carrying with it the faint, lingering scent of damp soil and stone. Beneath this serene, seemingly untouched surface, empires once rose with grandeur, now almost entirely forgotten. These were civilizations that mastered the mountains, the rivers, and the deserts, shaping them into stages for their lives, their rituals, and their mysteries. They were builders of cities that reached skyward in stone, farmers who coaxed life from terraces clinging to impossible slopes, and storytellers who carved myths into the earth and the sky. Today, what remains is often silent, crumbled walls, faded carvings, and outlines only visible when the sun casts long shadows across ancient stone. Yet, even in their quietude, these remnants hum with a history that seems to linger in the very air. There is a rhythm here, slow and steady, a pulse that speaks not of triumph, but of time itself, reminding us that even the mightiest empires eventually become whispers carried by the wind. Modern eyes may see only mountains, rivers, or deserts, but each curve in the landscape tells a story. The stones underfoot may once have supported bustling marketplaces or sacred temples, their presence now almost entirely hidden beneath the layers of earth and time. The rivers that shimmer in the morning sun were once highways of trade and communication, guiding travelers and merchants through lands full of life and color. There's a quiet contrast between what is known, the maps, the cities that tourists visit, the books that record history, and what remains mysteriously beyond reach. These forgotten civilizations exist in the liminal space between memory and imagination, inviting us to wonder, to slow down, and to let our thoughts drift gently across the centuries. As the sun rises, casting golden light across the highlands and valleys, one can almost feel the presence of those who lived here long before modern civilization claimed the land. Farmers tending their terraces, artisans carving intricate designs into stone, priests and shamans conducting sacred rituals, all existed within a harmony that we can scarcely imagine. Their achievements were vast, yet many are lost to time, leaving us only fragments, a ceremonial mound, a geoglyph visible from the sky, or a pattern etched into pottery that hints at stories we will never fully hear. These remnants are quiet, but they are not absent. They are invitations to the imagination, gentle nudges that awaken curiosity without urgency, perfect for letting the mind wander and relax at the same time. This is a land of contrasts, vast emptiness versus intricate civilization, silence versus the echoes of lives long past, nature's permanence versus humanity's fleeting existence. By allowing ourselves to dwell in this quiet space, we begin to notice the small details that speak volumes. The delicate curve of a ruined wall, the symmetry of a terrace descending a mountainside, the way light moves across the desert in patterns that seem intentional, almost sacred. These are not mere landscapes. They are the final, enduring signatures of people who lived, dreamed, and shaped the world in ways that still reach us, softly and subtly, even as centuries have passed. The contrast between the present calm and the bustling life that once existed creates a gentle tension in the mind, a curiosity that is soft enough to ease into sleep, but compelling enough to hold attention. As the morning deepens, it is easy to sense the faint heartbeat of history beneath the quiet surface. Even in the absence of stone temples or city walls, the land itself seems imbued with memory. Valleys slope gently where plazas may have once been. Hills rise where watchtowers or ceremonial platforms could have stood, and rivers carve paths that ancient travelers may have followed with care and purpose. Every feature of the land becomes a silent storyteller, sharing fragments of knowledge with those who are patient enough to see and listen. The hush of dawn, the slow unwrapping of sunlight, and the timelessness of the mountains together invite a deep sense of calm. One can close their eyes and feel the whispers of forgotten voices riding the wind, guiding the imagination to wander through civilizations long vanished yet not entirely gone. And so, as the mist slowly lifts and the world awakens in its quiet, deliberate rhythm, we prepare to follow these faint traces of human life. From the earliest settlements clinging to fertile valleys to the grand cities and sacred spaces that once echoed with song and ceremony, our journey begins gently, moving through time as the sun moves across the sky. The balance between what we know and what remains mysterious will guide us, encouraging contemplation and curiosity without urgency or alarm. In this delicate interplay between light and shadow, known and unknown, we find the perfect space to drift, to explore, and to fall slowly, peacefully, into the stories of forgotten empires. Long before the great Inca roads wound their way along jagged mountain ridges, long before terraces climbed steep Andean slopes in perfect rhythm, there existed the earliest stirrings of Andean civilization. In scattered valleys and along the fertile riverbanks, small communities began to take shape, their lives tied intimately to the rhythms of the earth. They were humble at first, planting maize, quinoa, and potatoes in carefully tended plots, observing the cycles of sun and rain, learning the language of seasons, and listening to the soft murmur of wind and river as if it carried secrets of the future. The contrast between their simplicity and the sophisticated societies they would eventually become is profound, yet gentle. It is a contrast that allows the mind to wander slowly, appreciating the delicate balance between human ingenuity and the slow, patient shaping of the natural world. These early Andean societies were not isolated. Trade networks extended subtly through valleys and across highlands, connecting distant communities with a quiet sophistication that often goes unnoticed. The exchange of tools, foodstuffs, and simple ornaments reveals a civilization gradually learning to coordinate, to plan, and to communicate across distances that would challenge even modern travelers. The contrast between the known, what archaeologists can reconstruct, and the unknown, the stories of daily life, personal struggles, and intimate rituals that leave no trace, creates a gentle tension in the imagination, the kind that encourages contemplation and quiet curiosity. We can trace the patterns of their lives and the terraces they built and the irrigation channels that still carry water centuries later. But the voices of the people themselves are elusive, whispering faintly in the stones and soil. It is in this quiet weaving of human and natural landscapes that culture began to flourish. Ceremonial sites emerged, modest at first, simple arrangements of stones and wooden posts that mark a reverence for the cosmos, for the mountains that towered above, and for the rivers that nourished their crops. People gathered in soft, rhythmic rituals, echoing chants that harmonized with the wind in the valleys, movements and offerings that celebrated life, death, and the eternal passage of time. These early spiritual expressions were not yet monumental, yet they laid the foundation for the grandeur of later civilizations. In the contrast between these humble beginnings and the monumental stonework of later empires, one can sense a narrative of human aspiration unfolding gently, a story told in whispers rather than in shouts. Agriculture in the highlands demanded ingenuity and patience. Terraces were carved slowly from the steep mountain slopes, stone retaining walls built to catch precious soil, and channels constructed to guide water with quiet precision. The land itself became a partner in survival, a living canvas upon which human skill and natural rhythms combined. Crops that thrived in harsh altitudes, like potatoes and quinoa, became staples that sustained growing populations. The rhythm of planting, tending, and harvesting became a steady heartbeat across the valleys, a rhythm that is almost palpable when we imagine these early lives. There's a contrast here, too. The unyielding challenge of the mountains versus the resilience and creativity of the people, a balance that mirrors the quiet tension between the natural world and human endeavor that defines much of Andean history. Yet, while we can trace the outlines of these early societies, many mysteries remain. How did these small communities communicate across valleys veiled in mist? What rituals or stories passed from one generation to the next, carrying wisdom that left no written trace? These questions linger softly, unanswered, encouraging the mind to drift through possibilities, imagining the laughter of children running through terraces, the quiet discussions of elders, and the songs of workers as they tended their fields. The unknown here is not frightening, but inviting, a gentle curiosity that complements the meditative tone of our journey. Each valley holds secrets, and each ruin whispers fragments of stories long past, as if the landscape itself were a quiet historian. In some regions, early settlements began to cluster into more organized centers, perhaps the earliest precursors to cities. Stone foundations mark the footprints of long-gone homes, plazas hint at communal gatherings, and ceremonial spaces suggest a complexity of social and religious life that we are only beginning to understand. These nascent urban centers contrast with the solitary, humble beginnings of scattered villages, revealing a gradual evolution from small, self-contained communities to interconnected societies capable of coordinating construction, agriculture, and ritual at a scale previously unimaginable. The transition is subtle, almost imperceptible, yet it is profound, showing how human ambition, patience, and adaptability slowly shape the landscape and the society that inhabits it. Art and craft, too, began to emerge in gentle forms. Pottery, woven textiles, and carved figurines speak of early Andean people's desire not only to survive, but to express themselves. These artifacts are small and delicate, yet they carry the weight of culture and identity. Patterns etched into clay or woven into fibers suggest symbolic meaning, perhaps related to agricultural cycles, religious belief, or social structure. In the contrast between the fragility of these objects and the enduring mountains that surround them, one can sense the ephemeral yet persistent nature of human presence, a theme that will echo throughout the stories of South America's forgotten empires. Even as these societies grew, they remained intimately connected to the environment. Mountains, rivers, and skies were not mere backdrops. They were active participants in the unfolding story of human life. People read the clouds and stars, interpreted the behavior of animals, and aligned their structures to the sun and moon. In doing so, they established a rhythm that was both practical and spiritual, a slow, deliberate interplay between humans and the world around them. This quiet attention to the natural order allowed them to thrive in landscapes that might otherwise seem inhospitable, demonstrating a resilience and creativity that is quietly awe-inspiring when one takes the time to imagine it. As we leave this early stage of Andean civilization, we carry forward an awareness of both the known and the unknown. We see terraces, irrigation channels, stone foundations, and the beginnings of ritual spaces, but much remains hidden, waiting for patient imagination to fill in the gaps. The gentle contrast between what we can reconstruct and what remains mysterious sets the stage for the larger, more complex empires that will emerge from these early societies. By reflecting on these beginnings, the listener is gently prepared to follow the unfolding story of South America's forgotten civilizations, drifting through time as the mountains, rivers, and forests continue their quiet, eternal rhythms. In the gentle embrace of the Soup Valley, where the river winds silently through fertile plains, there lies one of South America's earliest and most remarkable cities, Caral. The land itself seems to hold its breath here, as though aware of the history that rests quietly beneath the surface. Massive stone pyramids rise in solemn symmetry, their edges softened over centuries by wind and time, standing as silent witnesses to a civilization that flourished more than 4,000 years ago. Unlike many later Andean cities, Caral lacks defensive walls, suggesting a society that may have thrived in a period of relative peace, a society confident enough in its stability to build grandeur without fortification. The contrast between the quiet present and the lively past invites the imagination to wander through the streets, plazas, and ceremonial spaces, sensing the pulse of a community long vanished. Caral was not merely a collection of stone structures. It was a hub of culture, knowledge, and trade. Terraces spread across the valley, designed to cultivate maize, cotton, and other essential crops, demonstrating an understanding of irrigation and sustainable farming that seems remarkably sophisticated for its time. The gentle slopes of the pyramids were not only architectural statements, but also stages for rituals and communal gatherings. The contrast between the massive scale of these constructions and the delicate precision of their layout is striking, evoking both awe and quiet contemplation. One can imagine the sun rising over the terraces, the valley bathed in golden light as people gathered to celebrate cycles of planting, harvest, and celestial events, their lives intertwined with the rhythm of the natural world. What remains most intriguing about Caral is the mystery surrounding its people and their daily lives. Archaeologists have uncovered musical instruments made from reeds, suggesting that song and ritual were integral to the culture, yet the meanings behind many of these practices remain elusive. There are no extensive writings or codices to guide us, only artifacts, structures, and patterns etched into stone, whispering fragments of stories that we can only begin to reconstruct. This contrast between what is tangible, the pyramids, the plazas, the tools, and what is unknowable, their thoughts, beliefs, and conversations, creates a gentle curiosity, a quiet tension that encourages the listener to drift through possibilities rather than seek definitive answers. The mystery here is soothing rather than alarming, a soft invitation to imagine life as it once was in these valleys. The architecture of Caral itself tells a story of balance and ingenuity. Large platforms were constructed with precisely cut stones, some weighing several tons, carefully fitted together without mortar, a testament to the skill and patience of the builders. Residential areas lay nearby, modest in comparison to the grand ceremonial spaces, revealing a society that valued both communal identity and personal life. This interplay between the monumental and the intimate mirrors the broader contrast between what is seen and what remains hidden in history. As the mind moves slowly over these stone terraces and plaza outlines, it can almost feel the steady rhythm of life. Children running across open courtyards, artisans shaping instruments, priests performing rituals as the sun arcs across the sky. Trade and communication also played a quiet but essential role in Caral's success. Items such as shells from distant coasts suggest that even this early city maintained connections far beyond the valley, hinting at networks of exchange that carried both goods and ideas. Cotton, cultivated meticulously on terraces, may have been woven into textiles that traveled across regions, while food surpluses supported specialists and artisans. The contrast between the stillness of the archaeological site today and the vibrancy of trade and daily life in the past is profound, encouraging a reflective and imaginative engagement with history. By contemplating these connections, the listener is gently guided to appreciate the ingenuity, planning, and creativity that supported Caral's flourishing society. Caral also provides subtle insight into the spiritual life of its people. The arrangement of the pyramids and plazas suggests a keen awareness of the movements of the sun and moon, perhaps aligning rituals with celestial events. Small shrines, carved stones, and the placement of ceremonial spaces hint at beliefs that intertwine the earthly and the divine, though the specifics remain largely mysterious. This contrast between the tangible and the intangible, the structures and the spiritual practices they facilitated, creates a layered understanding of civilization, one that is simultaneously anchored in the physical world and reaching toward the cosmic. The soft speculation allows the mind to wander peacefully through possibilities, imagining ceremonies bathed in golden light, music rising gently in the plazas, and the harmonious coexistence of people and nature. As we move through the quiet ruins of Caral, one cannot help but feel the slow pulse of history beneath the surface. The city rose in an era long before the Inca, before even the Chavan culture, yet it established patterns that would echo across millennia. Monumental architecture, sophisticated agriculture, trade networks, and ceremonial life. The contrast between this ancient sophistication and the simplicity of the surrounding landscapes emphasizes the remarkable achievement of Caral's people. In the soft morning mist or under the gentle glow of sunset, the city feels alive in memory, a place where imagination bridges the centuries, connecting modern observers to lives once vibrant with purpose and rhythm. What makes Caral particularly enchanting is the quiet invitation it extends to those who visit in mind or imagination. There is no need for urgency or dramatic revelation. The city unfolds gently, layer by layer, as the listener allows themselves to drift through time. The slow pacing mirrors the deliberate construction of terraces and pyramids, the measured steps of priests and farmers, and the careful cultivation of crops that sustained life. In this way, Caral becomes more than an archaeological site. It becomes a vessel for contemplation, a landscape of memory and mystery that encourages a meditative state, perfect for reflection and relaxation. Here, history and imagination merge seamlessly, creating a rhythm that is soothing to the mind and spirit. As the sun arcs higher over the Soup Valley, the gentle contrast between light and shadow brings new details into view. Stone terraces catch golden rays, edges softened by centuries of wind and rain, while the open plazas remain cool in shadow, quiet and waiting. The city, though abandoned, speaks in subtle tones of human ambition, resilience, and creativity. It teaches a lesson that will resonate throughout our journey into the forgotten empires of South America. Even without written words, civilizations leave traces of their existence, whispering through the landscapes they shaped. As the listener absorbs these quiet truths, the mind drifts gently forward, ready to follow the next thread of history, where new mysteries await beyond the valley, waiting to be uncovered slowly and deliberately. High in the rugged Andean foothills, far from the bustling coasts and fertile valleys, there arose a civilization that would leave a mark as enigmatic as the mountains themselves, the Chavan. Their ceremonial centers, perched atop hills and nestled in river valleys, exude a quiet power that draws the imagination across millennia. As the morning mist drifts slowly through narrow canyons and over carved stone platforms, one can almost sense the rhythm of a culture attuned to both the earth and the heavens. The Chavan were masters of symbolism, weaving the tangible and the mystical into a tapestry that remains partially hidden from our understanding. Even today, as archaeologists study the intricate stone carvings and labyrinthine temple layouts, the full meaning of their rituals and beliefs seems to shimmer just beyond reach, like a shadow in the soft light of dawn. The architecture of Chavan is striking in its subtle complexity. Large ceremonial platforms rise from the earth, constructed with precision-cut stones that fit together with remarkable care. Narrow passageways and hidden chambers suggest that movement through the temples was intentional, perhaps reflecting ritual journeys or initiations. The contrast between the solidity of the stone and the mysterious purpose of its arrangement invites a gentle curiosity. We see what remains, yet we are aware that much of the ceremonial life, the prayers, chants, and sacred gestures, has faded like mist. This subtle tension between the known and unknown becomes a quiet rhythm for the mind, perfect for reflection and imagination. As one pictures a community moving carefully through these sacred spaces, their actions guided by beliefs we can only speculate upon. Central to the Chavan experience are the intricate carvings and motifs that adorn their temples and ceremonial plazas. Figures of felines, snakes, and birds are intertwined in abstract patterns that seem to pulse with symbolic meaning. The contrast between the beauty of these carvings and the mystery of their intent evokes wonder rather than anxiety. Were these images protective symbols, religious deities, or encoded narratives of history and myth? The lack of definitive answers encourages a soft, contemplative engagement with the culture, inviting the mind to wander through countless possibilities. Each carved face or undulating line seems to hum faintly with the presence of those who first touched the stone, a quiet echo of thought and intention that has traveled across thousands of years. The Chavan culture was not only about grand temples and mysterious carvings. It was deeply intertwined with the rhythms of daily life. Farming communities flourished along the river valleys, cultivating crops that thrived in the highlands while domesticating animals such as llamas and guinea pigs. Trade routes likely extended through mountain passes, connecting distant communities with raw materials, food, and cultural practices. This interplay between everyday life and ceremonial grandeur is subtle yet profound, illustrating a society that balanced survival with spiritual expression. The contrast between the ordinary and the sacred, the mundane and the mystical, provides a gentle lesson in the harmony of life, encouraging the listener to imagine a world in which every action was touched by ritual, yet grounded in practicality. Religious practice at Chavan remains one of the most compelling mysteries. Archaeological evidence suggests the use of hallucinogenic plants during rituals, possibly to induce visions and connect with the divine. The sound of conch shells and the low hum of ceremonial instruments may have resonated through stone passageways, guiding participants through altered states of consciousness. This delicate interplay between sensory experience and spiritual exploration remains largely speculative, but it invites the imagination to drift across time, contemplating what it might have felt like to be present in these sacred spaces. The contrast between the tangible artifacts and the unseen spiritual practices heightens the sense of mystery, creating a calm but compelling tension that is soothing to explore in a sleep-friendly narrative. Chavan artisans also left behind an array of objects that speak softly of everyday life intertwined with sacred symbolism. Finely woven textiles, carved bone and stone tools, and delicate ceramics reveal a culture attentive to detail, beauty, and utility. Patterns often echo those found in temple carvings, suggesting that art was a bridge between daily existence and spiritual aspiration. In the quiet contrast between the functional and the ceremonial, we glimpse a society deeply attuned to balance and harmony. Observing these artifacts today, one is struck by the care and intention evident in each object, a testament to human patience and creativity that resonates across the centuries. The strategic placement of Chavan ceremonial centers reflects a sophisticated understanding of geography and the environment. Many sites occupy vantage points that command sweeping views of valleys and rivers, connecting the sacred spaces with the natural world in subtle, deliberate ways. Light and shadow, water and stone, all seem to have been carefully considered in the design of these complexes, suggesting an intimate relationship with the cosmos and the elements. The contrast between the enduring physical structures and the ephemeral spiritual experiences they facilitated underscores the duality that defines the Chavan enigma. A civilization rooted in the earth, yet reaching for the intangible, anchored in reality, yet drawn to mystery. Even after the decline of Chavan influence, the echoes of their culture reverberated across subsequent Andean societies. Patterns, motifs, and ceremonial practices appear in later civilizations, hinting at the subtle transmission of ideas and beliefs. The contrast between what can be observed in the archaeological record and the missing pieces of cultural continuity invites reflection on the fragility and resilience of human history. The listener is encouraged to trace these faint threads, allowing the mind to wander through valleys and mountains, imagining the gradual transformation of society, the passing of knowledge, and the quiet persistence of memory across generations. As we leave the Chavan temples, there's a lingering sense of mystery that is both comforting and intriguing. The massive stones, the intricate carvings, the hidden passageways, they all speak in hushed tones, inviting contemplation rather than demanding attention. In the gentle interplay between light and shadow, known and unknown, the mind drifts naturally into curiosity, reflection, and quiet wonder. These early Andean people, though distant in time, communicate through their art and architecture, leaving traces that echo softly into the present. Their civilization, enigmatic and profound, sets the stage for the complex societies that will follow, whispering reminders of human ingenuity, spirituality, and the subtle beauty of mystery. In the soft glow of an imagined sunrise over Chavan's sacred spaces, one can sense the lives that moved carefully across stone terraces, the whispers of prayers carried on the wind, and the faint hum of ceremonial activity resonating through hidden chambers. The contrast between this vibrant past and the still, quiet ruins today encourages a gentle immersion in thought, perfect for drifting into a contemplative state. As we prepare to leave this culture behind and move toward the vast deserts of southern Peru, the listener carries with them an understanding of how mystery and history coexist, how human ambition and spirituality intertwine, and how even civilizations long gone can continue to speak softly to those who pause, listen, and imagine. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Desert seems at first glance to be a place of quiet emptiness. The sun casts long shadows across rolling dunes and rocky outcrops, and the wind whispers softly through sparse scrub, carrying the faint scent of dry earth. Yet beneath this serene and seemingly barren landscape lies one of South America's most enduring mysteries, the Nazca Lines. From the ground, the desert appears simple, almost monotonous, but when viewed from above, massive geoglyphs emerge, etched meticulously into the earth. These enormous designs, depicting birds, monkeys, spiders, and abstract shapes, stretch for hundreds of meters, their scale and precision provoking both wonder and quiet contemplation. The contrast between the stark simplicity of the desert and the astonishing intricacy of these lines evokes a gentle sense of awe, encouraging the mind to wander slowly through questions that remain unanswered. The creation of these lines required a deep understanding of the landscape. Stones were carefully removed to reveal the lighter soil beneath, forming continuous paths and patterns that have endured for over a millennium. Some figures are so large that they can only be fully appreciated from the air, suggesting that the Nazca people conceived of their art on a scale that transcends human perspective. The contrast between the visible labor of the artisans and the mystery of their intention is profound. Were these lines ceremonial pathways, astronomical calendars, or messages intended for the gods above? The precise meaning is lost to time, leaving only the visual beauty and silent testimony of human imagination and dedication. This gentle enigma invites quiet speculation, a perfect companion to reflection and relaxation. Life in the Nazca region was not as barren as it seems. Communities cultivated crops such as maize, beans, and squash using underground aqueducts known as puquios, which brought water to the arid plains. This ingenuity reveals a society that not only created astonishing visual art, but also mastered practical survival in an unforgiving environment. The contrast between the functional and the symbolic, the irrigation channels that sustained life and the geoglyphs that may have communicated with the spiritual world, offers a soft, rhythmic narrative that blends mystery with historical insight. Listeners can imagine farmers tending their fields under the gentle sun, while priests or artisans traced enormous figures across the sand, their movements deliberate and purposeful. The lines themselves are more than mere artistic expression. They are imbued with cultural and spiritual significance. Many scholars believe that the figures relate to water and fertility, essential concerns in a desert environment where survival depended on careful management of scarce resources. Birds may symbolize rain or celestial guidance, while monkeys, spiders, and other figures could represent myths, moral lessons, or clan identities. The contrast between what can be seen and what remains speculative allows the mind to drift, contemplating not only the creativity of the Nazca people, but also their worldview, a delicate balance between reverence for nature, spiritual connection, and practical ingenuity. The desert itself becomes a canvas for imagination, a quiet stage for rituals and beliefs that remain hidden from modern understanding. Traveling across the Nazca lines today, one encounters a landscape that is both haunting and serene. The soft wind stirs loose sand across the figures, slightly blurring their edges, a reminder of the passage of time. From a distance, the lines appear simple. Up close, the scale and precision are almost overwhelming. The contrast between perception and reality, between the ordinary desert floor and the extraordinary human achievement etched upon it, creates a gentle tension that is both intriguing and soothing. As the mind follows the curves and angles of the geoglyphs, it moves slowly, guided by imagination, tracing the paths of ancient hands across the earth. The mystery of how the Nazca lines were constructed adds another layer of fascination. Without aerial technology, the people of Nazca developed careful surveying techniques, ropes, and stakes to maintain scale and proportion. Some lines stretch for several kilometers, their paths remaining straight and true despite the uneven terrain. This remarkable feat of coordination and planning reflects a deep understanding of geometry and landscape, achieved without modern instruments. The contrast between the simplicity of available tools and the complexity of the results underscores the quiet ingenuity of a culture that valued precision, symbolism, and perhaps spiritual connection above all else. Even more enigmatic is the question of audience and purpose. The lines may have been intended for deities above, visible only from the sky, or as messages for distant communities traveling the valleys. Some figures align with astronomical phenomena, hinting at calendars or ritual timing, while others remain abstract, their significance lost entirely. This interplay between the tangible and the intangible, the practical and the mysterious, encourages a slow, meditative engagement. One can imagine ancient observers pausing to admire the work of their peers, contemplating the larger forces of nature, the sun and stars, and the unseen currents of life and ritual that guided their actions. The enduring beauty of the Nazca lines lies not only in their visual impact, but also in the quiet story they tell about human creativity and persistence. These figures are not hurried or chaotic. They're deliberate, patient, and harmonious with the environment. The desert that once threatened survival became a canvas for culture, a place where human intention met natural landscape in perfect rhythm. The contrast between this fragile yet lasting creation and the harshness of the surrounding environment highlights a timeless lesson. Even in places of apparent emptiness, human imagination and ingenuity can flourish. The lines invite a meditative gaze, a gentle journey across time and space, perfect for easing the mind into quiet reflection. As the sun sinks low over the Nazca Desert, shadows lengthen across the geoglyphs, accentuating their curves and angles, revealing details that shift with light and perspective. The landscape is silent but expressive, communicating through scale, pattern, and subtlety. This quiet drama, unfolding over centuries, evokes both wonder and calm, drawing the listener into a reflective state. In the contrast between what is visible and what remains mysterious, the Nazca lines continue to whisper their secrets softly, inviting the imagination to fill in the gaps, to ponder the lives and intentions of a people whose creativity transformed the desert into a timeless work of art. And so, as we leave the desert behind, carrying the quiet hum of mystery and human ingenuity, the mind is prepared to follow the next chapter in South America's forgotten empires. Beyond the plains lie the highlands and cold valleys of Tiwanaku, a city of stone that rises with enduring precision. From the wide, open spaces of Nazca to the monumental architecture of the Andes, We follow the delicate thread of human ambition and creativity, weaving together stories both known and unknowable. The desert's whispers fade, replaced by the steady pulse of stone, ritual, and civilization awaiting in the next stage of our journey. High upon the windswept plains of Bolivia, near the shimmering edges of Lake Titicaca, lies the ancient city of Tiwanaku. Here, the air is thin and crisp, carrying a quiet stillness that seems to stretch across centuries. Stone monuments rise from the flat, grassy expanse, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of wind and sun, yet still retaining a remarkable sense of order and precision. Tiwanaku's architecture is a silent testament to ingenuity, a civilization that flourished at high altitude, where survival itself required adaptation and skill. As the morning light brushes over the city's massive stones, one can almost imagine the bustling life that once animated this place, the measured rhythm of a society in harmony with its harsh environment. The contrast between the cold, expansive highlands and the warm, purposeful activity of its people invites the mind to drift gently through both time and landscape. Tiwanaku was more than a city. It was a hub of culture, governance, and spiritual practice. Large ceremonial platforms, constructed with massive stones weighing several tons, demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of engineering and geometry. The precision with which these stones fit together, often without mortar, is remarkable, and some techniques used by Tiwanaku builders remain only partially understood today. The contrast between what is visible, the perfectly cut stone, the enduring structures, and what remains hidden, the labor, planning, and rituals that gave rise to them, creates a soft tension in the imagination, encouraging curiosity without urgency. One can envision workers moving slowly and deliberately, using ropes, levers, and sheer patience to achieve feats that continue to astonish modern observers. The city's layout reflects an extraordinary harmony with the surrounding landscape. Sacred spaces, plazas, and temples align with the rising and setting sun, linking human construction to the rhythms of the cosmos. Tiwanaku's rulers and priests appear to have carefully orchestrated the positioning of each platform and monolith, creating spaces that connected spiritual, civic, and practical life. The contrast between the permanence of stone and the ephemeral nature of human activity is striking, emphasizing both the enduring legacy of Tiwanaku and the fleeting daily lives of its inhabitants. As we move mentally through these plazas and ceremonial spaces, the mind can feel the deliberate pacing of rituals, the gentle murmur of conversation, and the quiet hum of everyday life, all interwoven within the broader tapestry of the city. Agriculture played a crucial role in sustaining Tiwanaku. The surrounding highlands are harsh and unforgiving, yet the civilization thrived, cultivating potatoes, quinoa, and other high-altitude crops using raised fields called warwaris. These fields, with channels designed to capture and regulate water, demonstrate a remarkable understanding of microclimates and soil management. The contrast between the vast, open plains and the intricate, carefully engineered fields reveals the quiet ingenuity of a people attuned to their environment. It is easy to imagine farmers walking slowly along the edges of these canals, observing water levels and soil conditions, each step deliberate, each action mindful, a subtle harmony between human effort and natural forces. Tiwanaku was also a center for trade and cultural exchange. Obsidian, seashells, and other exotic goods traveled across the highlands, linking distant communities and fostering a sense of interconnectedness. This network was not built through speed or force, but through careful planning, patience, and an understanding of geography and human needs. The contrast between the vast, often intimidating highlands and the thriving social networks that connected them illustrates how, even in isolation, human societies develop intricate systems of cooperation and culture. By reflecting on these trade networks, the listener can sense a quiet complexity underlying the city's apparent stillness, a calm rhythm of life unfolding across mountains and valleys. Religious practice in Tiwanaku adds another layer of quiet fascination. Monolithic statues and carved gateways, such as the famous Gateway of the Sun, suggest that spirituality was deeply integrated into daily life. The placement of symbols, depictions of deities, and ceremonial platforms reflect a sophisticated cosmology, one that remains only partially understood. The contrast between the visible artifacts and the mysteries they represent invites gentle contemplation. One can imagine priests moving slowly through these spaces, performing rituals attuned to celestial movements, while the city's residents observed or participated in ways that were both orderly and deeply meaningful. The spiritual life of Tiwanaku, though largely silent to us today, resonates across time, whispering faintly through the stones and open plains. Even the smallest details of Tiwanaku reveal deliberate thought and care. Carved motifs on stones, patterns in city layouts, and subtle alignments with rivers and mountains suggest a society that perceived the natural world as a living framework for human life. The contrast between these precise constructions and the unpredictable weather, the harsh winds, and the challenging terrain emphasizes both the skill and patience of the civilization. By moving through these details slowly in the imagination, the mind absorbs both awe and serenity, recognizing the quiet persistence required to harmonize with such a demanding environment. Tiwanaku's influence extended far beyond its immediate surroundings. Artifacts, architectural styles, and ceremonial practices appear in distant highland communities, hinting at cultural diffusion and shared spiritual traditions. This subtle legacy suggests a civilization that, while now silent, left ripples that shaped successive Andean societies. The contrast between the silence of the ruins today and the vibrant influence once exerted across regions creates a meditative curiosity, encouraging reflection on the ways civilizations grow, interact, and leave enduring marks even after their decline. Even as centuries have passed, Tiwanaku retains a sense of quiet grandeur. Walking mentally through its plazas, tracing the edges of stone terraces, and imagining the slow movement of people across its open spaces evokes a serene rhythm, one that mirrors the deliberate pace of its construction and the measured cadence of life in the highlands. The contrast between what is known, the archaeological remains, and the mysteries that persist, the beliefs, rituals, and personal stories, creates a gentle tension that sustains curiosity without urgency. It is a rhythm designed not to startle, but to soothe, perfect for immersion and reflection, easing the mind toward both wonder and relaxation. As the sun dips lower over the plains, long shadows stretch across Tiwanaku's monumental stones, softening edges and illuminating intricate details. The quiet city seems to breathe again, as if the past momentarily awakens in the fading light. This gentle interplay of light, shadow, and imagination allows the mind to wander slowly through the achievements and mysteries of a civilization that once thrived where survival itself was a challenge. In this space, between the seen and the unseen, the tangible and the speculative, Tiwanaku speaks in hushed tones, inviting contemplation, curiosity, and a meditative calm that prepares the listener for the next chapter in South America's forgotten empires. As we prepare to leave the high plains behind, the mind carries forward a sense of scale, precision, and mystery. From the expansive terraces and stone platforms of Tiwanaku, we will move next to regions where the desert tells stories in lines and shapes, where human creativity meets harsh landscapes in ways equally remarkable. The quiet grandeur of Tiwanaku sets a standard, a gentle reminder that human civilization, even in the most challenging environments, can achieve harmony, artistry, and enduring presence. With this awareness, the listener is ready to follow the next story, where mystery and ingenuity converge under the wide, open skies of South America.
As we move from the quiet grandeur of Tiwanaku across high plains and winding valleys, a subtle transformation begins to unfold in the landscape of South America. The air grows warmer, the mountains shift into gentler slopes, and rivers widen as they carry their ancient stories toward the coast. This is a bridge in both time and space, a pause between forgotten cities and the rise of larger, more centralized empires. The calm movement through these shifting terrains mirrors the gentle unfolding of history, guiding the mind to observe the delicate interplay between past and present, known and unknown. It is in this transitional space that we begin to notice the subtle threads connecting isolated settlements, ceremonial centers, and eventually, the monumental societies that will dominate the Andean world. In these regions, traces of earlier civilizations remain quietly etched into the earth. Terraces, stone foundations, and ceremonial platforms reveal patterns of human settlement that persisted across generations, yet the details of social structures and daily life are largely lost. The contrast between what remains visible and the mysteries that have slipped through time encourages a reflective curiosity. We can see the skeleton of history without fully comprehending its flesh, imagining the rhythms of everyday life that once filled these spaces. Children may have played along terraces now silent, farmers tended crops on gentle slopes, and priests guided rituals that aligned with the sun and stars. These images emerge softly, like shadows at dusk, offering insight without overwhelming, sustaining a gentle meditative flow. This transitional era also highlights the importance of environmental adaptation in the Andes. As civilizations spread into diverse ecological zones, from high-altitude plains to river valleys and coastal deserts, they developed innovative ways to harmonize with the land. Irrigation systems, terraces, and agricultural strategies reflect a deep understanding of the challenges posed by climate, soil, and elevation. The contrast between human ingenuity and the harshness of the environment reinforces a theme we have seen repeatedly. Even in difficult landscapes, human creativity finds a way to flourish. This rhythm of adaptation, quiet yet persistent, prepares the mind to appreciate the sophisticated organization of later empires that drew upon centuries of accumulated knowledge and experimentation. Trade and communication gradually increased across these regions. Small networks of exchange expanded into more complex routes connecting valleys, highlands, and plains. Goods, ideas, and cultural practices flowed along these routes, quietly shaping societies long before the rise of empires like the Inca. The contrast between the slow, almost imperceptible development of these networks and the sprawling, highly organized trade systems of later civilizations offers a gentle lesson in patience and persistence. Each connection, each exchange, represents an invisible thread weaving together distant communities, a reminder that even forgotten societies contributed to the tapestry of history in meaningful ways. Spiritual life continued to anchor communities across these transitional zones. Temples, shrines, and ceremonial platforms were often modest compared to monumental sites like Tiwanaku, yet they reveal a consistent human desire to engage with the unseen. Rituals tied to water, fertility, and celestial events persisted, reflecting an enduring relationship with nature and the cosmos. The quiet repetition of these practices across time and space suggests a continuity of belief, a subtle thread connecting generations. In imagining these rituals, the mind moves slowly, absorbing both the rhythm of daily life and the cadence of ceremonial observance, preparing to enter the more centralized and expansive empires that follow. This bridge in the historical narrative is also a bridge in perception. We begin to notice patterns, the interplay between environment and architecture, the balance of functional and ceremonial spaces, and the gradual accumulation of cultural knowledge that enables larger societies to emerge. The quiet contrasts between what is known and what remains mysterious, between modest structures and grand ceremonial centers, allow the imagination to drift without pressure, sustaining a reflective, sleep-friendly engagement. Here, the listener is gently guided to appreciate the slow, patient evolution of human ingenuity and culture. Finally, this transitional section prepares the mind for the rise of empires whose influence would span vast territories. The foundations laid by early cities, agricultural innovations, trade networks, and spiritual practices set the stage for societies capable of unprecedented coordination, architecture, and cultural expression. The contrasts we have observed, the visible and the hidden, the humble and the monumental, softly echo forward, creating anticipation without urgency. As we move from the forgotten past into the age of expansive empires, the mind carries with it a calm awareness of continuity, mystery, and human creativity, ready to immerse in the next chapter of South America's history.
As the valleys widen and the Andean highlands stretch toward the coast, a new chapter in South America's history begins with the rise of the Wari Empire. Emerging around 600 CE, The Wari civilization marks a shift toward more centralized governance, extensive road networks, and monumental architecture, laying the foundations for future empires such as the Inca. Unlike earlier, more localized communities, the Wari built urban centers that connected diverse ecological zones, from arid deserts to fertile highlands, demonstrating a remarkable understanding of geography and human organization. The contrast between the quiet simplicity of preceding settlements and the coordinated complexity of the Wari highlights the gradual evolution of civilization in the Andes, a subtle rhythm that is both captivating and meditative for the mind. The city of Wari itself rises with quiet authority among the hills of Ayacucho. Massive stone structures, terraces, and ceremonial platforms create an urban landscape that is orderly yet expansive, a reflection of the civilization's careful planning and social organization. Streets and plazas appear to follow precise patterns, hinting at administrative and communal functions that once structured daily life. The contrast between the still, silent ruins we see today and the vibrant activity that must have filled these spaces encourages the imagination to drift gently through the past. Children walking along sunlit streets, artisans shaping textiles and pottery, and leaders moving deliberately between ceremonial and administrative areas. This layering of human activity within monumental structures provides a soothing, immersive rhythm that balances curiosity with calm. Agriculture and land management were central to Wari's success. Terraces carved into steep hillsides and irrigation systems channeled water to crops, ensuring that the city and its surrounding regions could sustain a growing population. The Wari adapted previous techniques from earlier cultures, refining them to support urban density and expansion. The contrast between natural landscapes and the meticulous human modifications emphasizes the ingenuity and patience of the people, who understood that harmony with the environment was essential to survival. Walking mentally along these terraces, one can sense the quiet labor of farmers, the steady cadence of planting and harvesting, and the delicate interaction between human effort and the rhythms of nature. Trade and communication networks expanded significantly under Wari influence. Roads connected distant valleys, highlands, and coastal regions, allowing goods such as textiles, pottery, and metals to flow across vast distances. These networks not only facilitated commerce, but also enabled cultural exchange, spreading religious practices, artistic motifs, and technological innovations. The contrast between the relative isolation of earlier settlements and the integration achieved by Wari planners underscores the civilization's strategic vision and social coordination. Imagining these trade routes stretching across mountains and deserts, one can feel the quiet pulse of movement and connection, a rhythm that binds people, landscape, and time into a continuous narrative. Art and symbolism flourished alongside Wari infrastructure. Textiles, ceramics, and carved stone objects reveal a culture attentive to both function and aesthetic, often imbued with spiritual significance. Patterns frequently include abstract designs, stylized animals, and motifs that reflect cosmological beliefs. The contrast between everyday objects and ceremonial items, between utility and symbolism, provides a gentle tension that invites contemplation. One can picture artisans working patiently, dyeing fibers, carving stone, and weaving intricate patterns, each movement deliberate, each creation a small but enduring expression of culture and identity. Religious and ceremonial life remained central to Wari society. Temples, plazas, and ritual centers were carefully designed to facilitate ceremonies that aligned with celestial events, agricultural cycles, and social hierarchies. The contrast between the visible structures and the largely invisible rituals invites the imagination to fill in the gaps, picturing processions, offerings, and communal observances. The subtle interplay between spiritual and practical life reflects a society that balanced reverence for the cosmos with the necessities of governance and survival. This balance encourages the mind to move slowly and deliberately through history, absorbing both known facts and mysterious possibilities without tension or urgency. Wary influence extended far beyond its urban centers. Outlying settlements, administrative outposts, and satellite towns demonstrate a model of governance that coordinated diverse regions under a single cultural and political framework. This centralization, combined with local autonomy in ecological management, allowed the empire to thrive across varied landscapes. The contrast between local practices and centralized oversight illustrates the sophisticated balance achieved by wary leaders. One can imagine messengers traveling along stone roads, delivering goods, information, and rituals, their movements forming a quiet, steady pulse that connected a vast and diverse territory. The decline of the wary empire around 1000 CE leaves more questions than answers. Factors such as environmental change, internal strife, and external pressures may have contributed, yet much remains speculative. The ruins themselves, massive stones, faded terraces, and empty ceremonial plazas, speak in hushed tones, offering fragments of knowledge and inviting reflection. The contrast between the empire's former vibrancy and the quiet stillness today fosters a meditative curiosity, allowing the mind to wander gently through both historical reality and imagined scenarios. This soft tension between what is known and what is mysterious encourages contemplation, preparing the listener for the continuation of Andean civilization in the following centuries. Despite its decline, the wary left an enduring legacy. Road networks, urban planning principles, agricultural innovations, and cultural motifs persisted, influencing later civilizations such as the Tiwanaku successors and ultimately the Inca Empire. The contrast between temporal decay and cultural continuity highlights the resilience of human innovation and the persistence of ideas across generations. As the mind moves through the remnants of wary influence, one can sense a rhythm of growth, adaptation, and subtle transformation that defines the broader story of Andean history. In the quiet of the highlands today, the stones of wary remain, bathed in soft sunlight or brushed by mist, speaking in a language of balance, ingenuity, and mystery. The combination of monumental architecture, agricultural mastery, and spiritual life forms a tapestry that is simultaneously tangible and enigmatic. The contrast between human achievement and the silence of centuries encourages a reflective, sleep-friendly engagement, allowing the listener to absorb history as a gentle current, flowing slowly and steadily across time and landscape. From the quiet ruins of wary cities, the mind is gently prepared to follow the next thread of Andean civilization, tracing connections to even more expansive and sophisticated societies yet to come. As the remnants of the wary empire recede into the soft contours of the Andes, a bridge emerges, connecting their achievements to the rise of one of the most renowned civilizations in South America, the Inca. This transitional period is not marked by sudden conquest or dramatic upheaval, but by subtle threads of continuity, innovation, and adaptation. Road networks first established by the wary were refined and expanded. Terraces and irrigation systems perfected over centuries continued to sustain growing populations, and ceremonial practices echoed quietly across valleys and mountains. The contrast between the quiet decay of past empires and the awakening of new centers of power encourages the imagination to drift gently through the centuries, noticing the steady accumulation of knowledge that made the Inca Empire possible. Geography plays a central role in this transition. The Andes stretch endlessly, presenting both challenges and opportunities for emerging civilizations. Rivers carve deep valleys, mountains rise sharply to touch the clouds, and plateaus offer spaces for settlement and cultivation. In this environment, communities that survived and thrived were those that adapted, collaborated, and innovated. The contrast between rugged, often unforgiving landscapes and the careful human interventions of roads, terraces, and aqueducts highlights the ingenuity that quietly shaped Andean history. The listener can imagine the slow construction of terraces along steep hillsides, the careful laying of stones for roadways, and the patient labor of generations, all contributing to a foundation for a civilization yet to come. Cultural practices and beliefs also persisted through these centuries, bridging the past with the future. Rituals tied to agricultural cycles, celestial observation, and water management maintained a spiritual continuity that reinforced societal cohesion. The interplay between ordinary daily life and ceremonial observance created rhythms that extended beyond individual communities, shaping broader cultural networks. The contrast between these enduring spiritual patterns and the fragmentary evidence that remains today invites reflection and gentle curiosity. One can picture ceremonies in valleys and hilltops, where offerings were made, songs were sung, and communities acknowledged their connection to both earth and sky, maintaining traditions while subtly adapting them for evolving societies. Trade, communication, and technological innovation continued to expand across the highlands during this bridge period. Road networks connected remote valleys, allowing for the movement of goods, ideas, and people in ways that gradually prepared the region for centralized control. Agricultural techniques, perfected over centuries, provided food security for increasingly complex societies. The contrast between scattered settlements and the coordinated systems emerging across the Andes highlights the slow, deliberate process of cultural evolution. Imagining the journey of goods along these roads, potatoes, maize, textiles, and metals, encourages a calm exploration of continuity, showing how each piece of knowledge, each practice, subtly shaped the foundations of the Inca Empire. Architecture and urban planning also show hints of continuity. Ceremonial platforms, plazas, and administrative spaces maintained forms first developed by the Wari and earlier cultures, yet they were refined to meet the needs of larger populations. The precision of stonework, alignment with celestial events, and thoughtful integration with the surrounding landscape suggest a gradual accumulation of engineering knowledge and spiritual insight. The contrast between the modest beginnings of earlier settlements and the sophisticated planning evident in these transitional sites reinforces the gentle progression of Andean civilization. It is a rhythm of growth that encourages the listener to move slowly through time, absorbing the gradual unfolding of ingenuity and human creativity. This transitional era, while quieter in the archaeological record, offers a unique opportunity for reflection. The remnants of past empires, the scattered settlements, and the subtle innovations all act as threads connecting human experience across centuries. The contrast between the known, the terraces, roads, and ruins, and the unknown, the daily lives, personal stories, and cultural practices that left no trace, creates a gentle tension that draws the mind forward without urgency. Listeners can drift slowly through imagined valleys, following faint echoes of song, labor, and ritual, experiencing history as a continuous, soothing current rather than a sequence of abrupt events. As we prepare to leave this bridge behind, the mind carries forward an awareness of continuity, adaptation, and quiet ingenuity. The Wari and their predecessors laid the foundations for centralized power, complex infrastructure, and integrated spiritual life, creating a world in which the Inca could rise with remarkable efficiency and vision. The contrast between the fading grandeur of past empires and the approaching brilliance of the Inca allows the listener to appreciate the cumulative, patient work of generations that shaped the Andes. It is a moment of calm reflection, a pause to acknowledge the invisible threads connecting civilizations, before moving gently into the next chapter, where the Inca will emerge as both a continuation and transformation of the histories that preceded them. In the heart of the Andean highlands, where mountains rise sharply into the clouds and valleys cradle slow-moving rivers, the Inca Empire began its remarkable ascent. Unlike previous civilizations, the Inca created a highly centralized and sophisticated state that integrated diverse peoples, landscapes, and ecological zones under a single political and spiritual framework. The rise of the Inca is not a tale of sudden conquest alone, but of careful observation, strategic alliances, and a subtle weaving of knowledge from earlier cultures. The contrast between the vastness of the Andes and the intricacy of Inca administration invites the imagination to move slowly, absorbing both the scale of their achievements and the quiet patience that enabled them to flourish. The Inca capital, Cusco, was the heart from which this empire expanded. Carved into the mountainside with astonishing precision, the city is a blend of natural topography and human ingenuity. Terraces climb steep hills, plazas open to sky and sunlight, and stone buildings fit together so perfectly that mortar is often unnecessary. Streets and pathways wind gracefully, guiding both residents and visitors through a carefully considered urban plan. The contrast between the natural curves of the mountains and the precise geometry of Inca architecture reflects a society deeply attuned to the environment, capable of harmonizing human ambition with the rhythms of the earth. Walking mentally through Cusco, one can almost hear the soft murmur of daily life, the steady cadence of markets, and the distant echoes of ritual ceremonies. Agriculture formed the backbone of Inca society. Terraces, irrigation systems, and frost-resistant crops allowed the Inca to sustain large urban populations and maintain food security across varying climates. The subtle ingenuity of these systems lies not only in their efficiency, but in their integration with the natural landscape. The contrast between the steep, challenging mountains and the orderly, productive terraces demonstrates a profound understanding of ecology and human needs. Farmers moving slowly along these terraces, tending potatoes, quinoa, and maize, created a rhythm of life that balanced labor with observation, patience, and harmony with nature. These agricultural practices were not merely practical. They were deeply woven into the spiritual and social fabric of Inca culture. The Inca also perfected the art of communication across vast distances. A network of roads, stretching thousands of kilometers, connected the empire's far-flung regions. Along these paths, chasquis, or messengers, ran swiftly, relaying information, goods, and messages with remarkable efficiency. The contrast between the slow-moving natural world, the mountains, rivers, and valleys, and the swift, purposeful movement of human activity along these roads illustrates the extraordinary organization of the empire. These roads were more than practical conduits. They were lifelines connecting diverse communities, carrying both material goods and the cultural threads that unified the Inca state. Spiritual and religious life was deeply integrated with governance and daily life. The Sapa Inca, both a ruler and a spiritual leader, was considered the descendant of the sun god Inti, establishing a theocratic foundation that intertwined civic authority with divine right. Temples, most notably the Coricancha in Cusco, were centers of ritual, astronomy, and governance. The contrast between tangible structures, the massive stones, golden altars, and ceremonial spaces, and the intangible beliefs they represented evokes a contemplative sense of wonder. Observers can imagine priests performing rituals timed to celestial events, offerings carried along terraces, and the quiet reverence of citizens participating in festivals that marked agricultural and astronomical cycles. Art and craftsmanship flourished in the Inca Empire, balancing beauty, utility, and symbolism. Textiles, pottery, and metalwork reveal a sophisticated aesthetic sensibility and technical skill. Patterns often incorporate sacred geometry, mythological motifs, and representations of animals tied to cosmology. The contrast between utilitarian objects and ceremonial artifacts underscores a culture where art served both practical and spiritual purposes. Imagining artisans patiently weaving, carving, and shaping objects provides a gentle rhythm for the mind, blending creativity with cultural continuity and reinforcing the serene pace of life within the empire. The Inca also demonstrated remarkable social organization. Communities were structured into ailis, extended family groups that worked cooperatively on land and projects, ensuring both survival and cultural cohesion. Labor taxation, known as MITEA, organized citizens to contribute to public works, agriculture, and infrastructure in a system that balanced obligation with community benefit. The contrast between individual labor and collective achievement reflects a sophisticated understanding of societal dynamics, where personal effort harmonized with the needs of the greater whole. Visualizing this collaborative rhythm of life allows the listener to absorb the quiet intricacies of daily routines without pressure or urgency. Expansion and administration of the Inca Empire were conducted with strategic diplomacy and cultural integration. Conquered peoples were often incorporated through a combination of infrastructure development, religious assimilation, and local autonomy, rather than mere force. Roads, terraces, and administrative centers facilitated this integration, while the redistribution of resources reinforced loyalty and cohesion. The contrast between the centralized authority of the Sapa Inca and the local traditions maintained by subject communities illustrates a delicate balance of power, one that enabled the empire to maintain stability across diverse landscapes and populations. This harmony between control and adaptation evokes a sense of calm precision, a slow-moving current of governance flowing across vast territories. Even in the Andes' most remote regions, the presence of the Inca could be felt through infrastructure, religious influence, and cultural exchange. Bridges spanning deep gorges, finely constructed roads winding through mountain passes, and terraces carved into slopes provided continuity of connection and sustenance. The contrast between these enduring constructions and the often hostile environment emphasizes the ingenuity, patience, and resilience of the Inca people. Observing these achievements in the mines encourages a gentle appreciation of human adaptation, the marriage of practical necessity with visionary planning, and the quiet majesty of the empire. Despite the Inca Empire's vastness, daily life retained a quiet rhythm. Markets, festivals, agricultural cycles, and religious observances all unfolded in a measured cadence that harmonized with both nature and society. The contrast between monumental achievements, the roads, terraces, and palaces, and the soft patterns of human behavior provide a soothing narrative, perfect for contemplation and reflection. Imagining the interplay of work, ritual, and leisure across diverse Andean communities offers a meditative glimpse into a civilization that balanced ambition, culture, and spiritual reverence with remarkable grace. As we leave the capital of Cusco and move outward to the empire's furthest reaches, the mind carries forward the sense of scale, ingenuity, and mystery that defines the Inca. Mountains, valleys, rivers, and terraces continue to tell stories of human creativity, patience, and adaptation. The contrast between the grandeur of centralized power and the subtle rhythms of daily life creates a layered, immersive experience, allowing the listener to drift slowly through both history and imagination. From the rise of a small highland kingdom to the establishment of one of the most extensive empires in the world, the Inca exemplify the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity in South America, inviting calm reflection and gentle curiosity.
Stretching across mountains, valleys, and deserts, the Inca road system is one of the most remarkable achievements of pre-Columbian South America. Known as the Capac-Nan, this network of paths connected the vast empire from the northern forests of Ecuador to the arid coasts of Chile and Argentina. Unlike modern highways designed solely for speed, these roads were carefully integrated with the natural landscape, winding along ridges, crossing rivers, and ascending steep slopes with a deliberate grace. The contrast between the rugged, often inhospitable terrain and the smooth, purposeful lines of the road speaks to the ingenuity and patience of the Inca. Each stone and path seems to breathe a quiet rhythm, inviting the mind to follow their curves and elevations slowly, almost meditatively. The construction of these roads required extraordinary planning and skill. Inca engineers used retaining walls, drainage systems, and stone paving to ensure stability and durability, even on the steepest slopes. Rope bridges stretched over deep canyons, swaying gently in the wind, allowing continuity across otherwise impassable terrain. The contrast between the fragile-seeming yet enduring bridges and the harsh environment they spanned demonstrates the quiet mastery of the Inca over their world. Walking mentally along these paths, One can sense the careful hand of engineers, the slow movement of laborers placing stones, and the careful observation needed to ensure the road would survive centuries of wind, rain, and temperature extremes. These roads were not merely practical, they were lifelines of communication, administration, and culture. Chasquis, the Inca messengers, ran swiftly along these routes, relaying messages across hundreds of kilometers in a matter of days. Equipped with quipus, knotted strings used to record information, they carried numerical data, census information, and logistical details critical for governance. The contrast between the human speed of communication and the vast distances of the Andes underscores the remarkable efficiency of the empire. Imagining these runners, moving with stamina and focus along mountain paths, the mind adopts a gentle rhythm, attuned to both the endurance of the messengers and the quiet majesty of the terrain. Roads also facilitated the movement of goods and resources. Food, textiles, metals, and ceremonial objects traveled these networks, connecting distant regions and integrating diverse ecological zones. Coastal fish could reach highland populations, while quinoa and potatoes nourished communities in arid lowlands. This careful orchestration of logistics highlights a sophisticated understanding of both geography and human need. The contrast between remote, isolated landscapes and the bustling flow of resources along these roads provides a calming sense of interconnectedness, showing how even vast distances can be bridged with patience and organization. The spiritual and ceremonial aspects of these roads are equally profound. Many paths align with sacred mountains, rivers, and astronomical markers, reflecting a deep awareness of both landscape and cosmology. Travelers were not only moving goods or messages, they were moving through a landscape imbued with spiritual significance. The contrast between the physical effort of journeying and the quiet reverence for the sacred environment creates a layered, contemplative experience. Imagining pilgrims walking these paths, pausing to honor sacred sites, offers a gentle immersion into the Inca worldview, where geography, spirituality, and human endeavor are inseparably intertwined. Maintenance of the road network was continuous and organized. Local communities were responsible for sections of the road, clearing debris, repairing stonework, and ensuring bridges remained secure. This system reflects a combination of collective responsibility and centralized oversight, a harmony that allowed the network to endure. The contrast between individual effort and empire-wide coordination demonstrates the balance the Inca struck between autonomy and integration. Mentally tracing these maintenance routines, one can sense the calm diligence of laborers, the quiet passing of generations keeping the arteries of the empire alive. Architecture along the roads further emphasizes the Inca's attention to detail. Tambos, or roadside lodges, offered shelter and supplies to travelers, creating safe resting points along long journeys. These structures, often simple yet functional, show the careful planning that supported both movement and social cohesion. The contrast between the monumental scale of Cusco and Machu Picchu and the modest, practical tambos illustrates a sophisticated understanding of scale, purpose, and human needs. Imagining travelers resting in these lodges, sharing food, stories, and quiet conversation, provides a soothing, almost cinematic sense of life along the Capac Nan. In addition, the roads enabled administrative control over the empire's vast and varied population. Governors, tax collectors, and military units could move efficiently, ensuring the centralized authority of the Sapa Inca reached every corner. The contrast between remote, high-altitude communities and the reach of central power underscores the Inca ability to blend organization with respect for local conditions. The roads themselves became symbols of connection, stability, and continuity, providing both physical and cultural links across immense distances. For the listener, this invites gentle reflection on the balance between mobility, governance, and human ingenuity. Even today, walking along segments of the Capac Nan, one can feel the continuity of centuries of use. The stones, terraces, and bridges bear silent witness to countless footsteps, each leaving an imperceptible mark on history. The contrast between the enduring paths and the ephemeral presence of those who traveled them encourages contemplation of impermanence, continuity, and the subtle threads linking generations. The mind drifts slowly along these paths, imagining runners, traders, pilgrims, and officials moving in quiet harmony with the environment, carrying with them the heartbeat of an empire that thrived on connection. In essence, the Inca roads are more than infrastructure. They are arteries of culture, memory, and life, bridging mountains and generations alike. The gentle rhythm of movement, the precision of construction, and the integration of spiritual, practical, and administrative functions all invite the listener into a meditative state. The contrast between the vast, silent Andes and the purposeful human activity along the roads provides a layered, immersive experience, encouraging both awe and tranquility. Through these paths, we can sense the pulse of an empire that stretched across some of the most challenging landscapes on Earth, connecting people, ideas, and lives in a slow, enduring current. As we leave the roads behind and move toward the great citadels, terraces, and sacred sites they connected, the mind carries with it a sense of scale, continuity, and quiet ingenuity. The Capac Nan serves as both a literal and metaphorical bridge, linking distant communities and historical epochs. In this gentle movement, the listener prepares to explore the pinnacles of Inca achievement, the monumental sites where human ambition, spiritual reverence, and architectural mastery converge. The roads fade into memory, leaving behind the soft echo of countless footsteps, a rhythmic foundation upon which the next chapter of exploration will unfold. Hidden high in the misty peaks of the Andes, Machu Picchu emerges almost like a dream, perched between steep slopes and shrouded by the clouds that drift lazily through the valleys. This ancient citadel, long concealed from the eyes of the outside world, is a testament to the ingenuity, artistry, and spiritual vision of the Inca. The contrast between the sheer vertical cliffs and the delicate terraces carved into the mountainside highlights a remarkable harmony between human creativity and natural landscape. Walking mentally through its narrow stone pathways, one can almost hear the soft rush of rivers below, the whispering wind through terraced crops, and the quiet presence of a civilization that once moved with meticulous care across this dramatic terrain. The layout of Machu Picchu reflects both practicality and profound spiritual significance. Urban sectors, temples, plazas, and agricultural terraces are all arranged with precise attention to orientation, topography, and celestial alignment. The Temple of the Sun, constructed with massive stones perfectly fitted together without mortar, serves as a focal point for astronomical observation, ritual ceremonies, and community gatherings. The contrast between the monumental stonework and the natural forms of the surrounding peaks evokes a sense of deliberate balance, where human endeavor complements rather than competes with the environment. Imagining the sun rising over these terraces, illuminating polished stones and casting long shadows across the city, encourages a slow, meditative reflection on both human skill and the passage of time. Agriculture in Machu Picchu is as impressive as its architecture. Terraces descend gracefully down the mountainside, designed to prevent erosion, manage water flow, and create microclimates suitable for diverse crops. The Inca's understanding of high-altitude farming is evident in the strategic placement of terraces, which capture sunlight differently at each level, allowing potatoes, maize, and other staples to thrive. The contrast between the challenging natural environment and the carefully cultivated terraces reveals a culture that patiently mastered its landscape. One can imagine farmers moving slowly across these terraces, tending crops with quiet care, while the rhythm of planting and harvesting echoes a deeper harmony with the cycles of nature. The construction of Machu Picchu demonstrates engineering mastery. Stones weighing several tons were transported, shaped, and fitted with precision that defies modern understanding. The terraces themselves act as retaining walls, drainage systems, and foundations for buildings, reflecting an integrated approach to both form and function. The contrast between the immense scale of stone construction and the human effort required emphasizes not brute force but ingenuity, observation, and meticulous planning. Visualizing the laborers moving slowly, placing each stone with careful alignment, allows the mind to absorb the quiet dedication that shaped this extraordinary city. Machu Picchu's urban design also reflects careful social planning. Residential zones, plazas, and ceremonial areas are separated yet connected through winding paths and stairways, promoting both community cohesion and individual privacy. The layout encourages movement that feels natural and deliberate, guiding residents and visitors through spaces that balance utility, beauty, and spiritual significance. The contrast between public ceremonial spaces and private living quarters illustrates a society attentive to both collective life and personal experience, reinforcing a rhythm of harmony and reflection that is calming and immersive. Water management was crucial to the citadel's sustainability. Springs, canals, and fountains were engineered to distribute fresh water across terraces and plazas, ensuring that both residents and crops were nourished. The Inca integrated these systems seamlessly into the natural topography, highlighting a sophisticated understanding of hydrology and landscape. The contrast between the flowing water and the rigid stonework demonstrates a subtle interplay between movement and stability, offering a meditative sense of balance. Mentally tracing the gentle curves of these aqueducts and the soft trickle of water encourages the mind to slow, following the quiet pulse of life that once animated the city. Ritual and spiritual life permeated Machu Picchu. Ceremonial structures, such as the Intihuatana stone, align with solar events and mark the passage of time, reflecting the Inca's astronomical knowledge and religious devotion. Pilgrims and priests would have moved through these sacred spaces with deliberate reverence, observing the sun, performing offerings, and connecting with both earth and sky. The contrast between these intangible spiritual practices and the tangible stone structures evokes a gentle tension, drawing the mind into slow contemplation. Imagining ceremonies unfolding under a rising sun or soft morning mist, one can sense the quiet rhythm of devotion that structured both time and community. Machu Picchu's location itself carries mystery and strategic significance. Hidden from the Urubamba River below and surrounded by steep cliffs, the city could remain unseen, providing both protection and secrecy. Its remoteness also offered a natural connection to the surrounding sacred mountains, emphasizing a cosmological relationship between human settlement and spiritual geography. The contrast between isolation and integration, seclusion for protection, yet harmonization with sacred peaks, reflects the Inca's understanding of both practical and symbolic landscapes. One can imagine moving through these steep paths, feeling the calm, slow ascent, each step a quiet exploration of space and purpose. Art and craftsmanship at Machu Picchu extend to both large-scale construction and finer details. Stone walls are shaped with precision, doorways and windows align with sunlight at solstices, and ceremonial objects would have been carefully crafted for religious use. The contrast between monumental architecture and delicate artistic details reflects a culture attentive to both the grand and the subtle, where each element contributes to a cohesive, immersive experience. Mentally observing artisans shaping these details encourages a gentle focus, guiding attention in a way that is both engaging and calming. The rediscovery of Machu Picchu in 1911 by Hiram Bingham introduced the world to a city that had remained hidden for centuries, yet the silence and mystery of its stones continue to captivate. Even today, the citadel communicates in hushed tones, offering fragments of knowledge and inviting imagination to fill the spaces left by time. The contrast between modern observation and ancient presence encourages reflection on the continuity of human experience, the passage of generations, and the subtle echoes of past lives. Imagining the quiet hum of Machu Picchu in its prime, with terraces alive with crops, ceremonial spaces filled with ritual, and pathways linking each structure, provides a soothing, almost hypnotic narrative flow. As the mist drifts over the peaks, softening edges and highlighting contours, Machu Picchu stands as a meditation on human ingenuity, patience, and harmony with nature. Its terraces, temples, and pathways reveal not only architectural mastery but also a profound understanding of landscape, society, and spirituality. The contrast between permanence and impermanence, stonework enduring for centuries, human activity now long gone, creates a layered reflection, perfect for quiet contemplation and gentle immersion. From Machu Picchu, the mind can drift slowly toward broader patterns, tracing the threads of civilization, spirituality, and ingenuity that flow through South America's forgotten empires. Leaving the hidden citadel behind, the listener carries forward a sense of wonder, serenity, and continuity. The pathways that connect Machu Picchu to other regions, the terraces that transform mountainsides, and the silent temples that align with the sun all serve as a reminder that even in isolation, human creativity can harmonize with the most challenging landscapes. This contemplative journey prepares the mind for the next stage, where we explore the final reflections on the legacy of South America's ancient empires, the mysteries that endure, and the lessons whispered across centuries of stones, valleys, and skies. As we leave the mist-shrouded peaks of Machu Picchu and descend toward the lush valleys below, a gentle pause allows the mind to reflect on the vast tapestry of civilizations that shaped the Andes. This transitional bridge between monumental citadels and the broader landscapes they influenced offers space for contemplation. The contrast between the soaring heights of Machu Picchu and the gentle rivers and fertile plains below mirrors the interplay between human ambition and the natural world, reminding the listener of the balance these civilizations maintained with their environment. In this quiet descent, the mind drifts slowly, absorbing both the tangible achievements of the Inca and the subtle echoes of earlier cultures that paved the way. Walking mentally through these valleys, One senses the continuity of history in the terraces, roads, and scattered ruins that dot the landscape. Earlier societies, the Wari, Tiwanaku, and countless smaller communities, laid the foundations for the Inca, creating agricultural innovations, ceremonial practices, and communication networks that would endure for centuries. The contrast between the scale of earlier achievements and the monumental presence of the Inca encourages a reflective curiosity, allowing the listener to appreciate the gradual accumulation of knowledge across generations. It is in this layering of civilizations, each building upon the previous, that we find a serene rhythm of human endeavor, stretching softly across time and space. The valleys themselves tell stories of resilience and adaptation. Rivers, flowing slowly yet persistently, provide water for crops and communities, echoing the persistence of human innovation in these challenging landscapes. Terraces carved into the slopes demonstrate a careful dialogue between people and environment, a delicate negotiation that balances sustainability with necessity. The contrast between the movement of water, shaping valleys over millennia, and the deliberate shaping of land by human hands creates a soothing, contemplative perspective. Observing these features in the imagination allows the listener to feel the patience and foresight required to thrive in such regions, cultivating a sense of calm reflection. Trade and cultural exchange continue to ripple through these valleys, just as they did along Inca roads and Wari pathways. Goods, ideas, and spiritual practices traveled quietly between communities, weaving an intricate network of human connection. Even in isolation, settlements were linked by these soft currents, creating a web of influence that extended far beyond any single city or citadel. The contrast between remote, seemingly solitary villages and the invisible threads of cultural continuity evokes gentle wonder, emphasizing the subtle complexity of Andean civilization. Imagining these exchanges, a basket of maize carried down a terrace, a ritual object traded between valleys, or a song echoing across a canyon, invites a slow, immersive appreciation of interconnected human experience. Spiritual awareness continues to bind people to the land. Sacred mountains, rivers, and rock formations are observed and revered, their significance passed quietly from one generation to the next. Rituals, offerings, and festivals align human activity with the cycles of nature, reinforcing a sense of belonging and continuity. The contrast between the enduring physical landscape and the ephemeral nature of ceremonial practices deepens contemplative engagement, encouraging the mind to wander gently between the tangible and the intangible. One can envision priests or elders guiding rituals at sunrise or sunset, their movements deliberate, their voices soft, blending seamlessly with the rhythm of the natural world. This reflective descent through valleys also highlights the subtle persistence of mystery. Even with extensive archaeological research, many aspects of earlier Andean civilizations remain uncertain. The meanings of certain structures, the full extent of cultural influence, and the stories of individual lives are largely lost to time. The contrast between what we know and what remains hidden encourages curiosity while maintaining a calm, meditative pace. Imagining these unanswered questions invites a gentle sense of exploration without urgency, a quiet journey through time that soothes the mind as much as it engages it. As we prepare to move toward the final reflections of South America's forgotten empires, the valleys serve as a natural bridge. They carry forward the legacies of ingenuity, adaptation, spirituality, and interconnectedness that define these civilizations. The contrast between peaks and valleys, monumental and subtle, known and unknown, creates a gentle narrative tension, a rhythm that sustains curiosity while allowing the listener to relax. It is a space of quiet observation, where the mind can linger on achievements, absorb lessons from the past, and prepare to appreciate the enduring mysteries and reflections that conclude this long journey. Through this transitional journey from peaks to valleys, the listener experiences both a literal and metaphorical descent, one that emphasizes reflection, continuity, and the gentle unfolding of human history. The stories of Tiwanaku, Wari, and Inca civilizations merge softly with the landscapes they inhabited, forming a tapestry of knowledge, mystery, and serene wonder. In this quiet contemplation, the mind is ready to move toward the final chapter, where the legacies of these forgotten empires will be distilled into lasting lessons and meditative reflections, echoing across centuries of Andean life.
As the journey through the peaks, valleys, and ancient cities of South America draws to a close, we pause to reflect on the enduring legacy of these forgotten empires. From the quiet highlands of Tiwanaku to the sprawling urban centers of the Wari, and from the majestic heights of Machu Picchu to the intricate roads that connect distant regions, a tapestry of human ingenuity, spirituality, and resilience unfolds. The contrast between the ephemeral nature of human life and the permanence of stone terraces, temples, and roads invites a gentle contemplation of time, continuity, and the quiet persistence of civilization. These remnants, though weathered by centuries, whisper stories of ingenuity and adaptation, allowing the mind to wander slowly through both fact and imagination. The enduring influence of these civilizations is evident in multiple layers. Architectural innovations, terraces, aqueducts, urban planning provided blueprints for successive societies, culminating in the grand achievements of the Inca Empire. Agricultural techniques, refined over generations, enabled the transformation of steep, challenging landscapes into productive and sustainable regions. The contrast between the simplicity of early settlements and the sophisticated organization of later empires highlights the gradual accumulation of knowledge, patience, and experimentation. Imagining the careful planning, daily labor, and observation required to achieve these feats encourages the mind to slow, appreciating the subtle rhythms of human ingenuity. Spiritual and cultural legacies remain equally profound. Temples, shrines, and ceremonial platforms, often aligned with celestial events, reveal a persistent desire to understand and connect with the cosmos. Rituals tied to the sun, water, fertility, and the cycles of nature reveal continuity across centuries and civilizations. The contrast between the material permanence of structures and the ephemeral nature of rituals emphasizes a dynamic relationship between the tangible and intangible, inviting quiet reflection. One can visualize priests and communities performing ceremonies, the cadence of their movements echoing softly across generations, linking past and present in a meditative rhythm. Trade, communication, and social organization also carry lessons for understanding human collaboration. Networks of roads, messengers, and exchange routes facilitated connections across immense distances, knitting together diverse communities. These systems illustrate a sophisticated understanding of coordination, mutual reliance, and adaptation to varying landscapes. The contrast between remote settlements and the integrated networks of later civilizations evokes both wonder and a sense of calm. Mentally tracing goods, messages, and cultural influences moving along these networks creates a soothing rhythm, a quiet pulse of continuity that bridges centuries and distances. The mystery of these civilizations persists, adding depth and serenity to reflection. Despite extensive research, many questions remain unanswered. The precise functions of certain structures, the intricacies of social hierarchies, and the intimate details of daily life. This ambiguity allows the imagination to wander, blending historical knowledge with gentle speculation. The contrast between what is known and what remains hidden nurtures curiosity without urgency, sustaining a tranquil, meditative engagement. In the silence of these valleys and mountains, the unknown becomes a space for contemplation, an invitation to honor both discovery and mystery. Nature and human endeavor intertwine throughout this history. Mountains, rivers, and fertile plains were not simply backdrops. They shaped social organization, spiritual beliefs, and technological innovation. Terraces harmonized with slopes, roads followed ridgelines, and temples aligned with celestial patterns, revealing a profound integration of environment and culture. The contrast between the permanence of the landscape and the subtle imprints of human activity encourages reflection on balance, adaptation, and patience. Observing the landscape in the mind's eye evokes a gentle calm, a sense of connection to both natural rhythms and human creativity. Finally, the legacy of these forgotten empires extends beyond physical artifacts or historical records. They leave behind a philosophy of harmony, resilience, and interconnectedness. The knowledge embedded in their agriculture, architecture, and spiritual practices demonstrates the power of observation, patience, and adaptation. The contrast between their modest beginnings and monumental achievements teaches that great civilizations are often built through gradual, thoughtful progress rather than sudden leaps. This insight carries a quiet, timeless resonance, allowing the listener to drift slowly through reflection, embracing both the magnitude and subtlety of human potential. As we draw near the conclusion, the mind is encouraged to absorb these lessons in a calm, contemplative state. The stories of Tiwanaku, Wari, and Inca civilizations intertwine, forming a continuum of innovation, spirituality, and adaptation. The contrast between visible ruins and lost practices, monumental achievements and subtle daily rhythms, known facts and enduring mysteries, creates a layered, immersive experience. In this space, the listener is invited to rest, reflect, and gently ponder the enduring echoes of South America's ancient empires, carrying their quiet wisdom forward as both knowledge and meditation. In the final moments of reflection, one can imagine the highlands and valleys bathed in soft, golden light. Rivers glisten quietly, terraces slope gracefully down mountainsides, and stone pathways hum with the memory of countless footsteps. Temples remain silent, yet the rhythm of past ceremonies seems to linger, faintly echoing through the air. The contrast between stillness and the invisible presence of history fosters a soothing atmosphere, perfect for contemplation or gentle sleep. The empires may be forgotten in popular memory, yet their essence endures, whispering lessons of resilience, ingenuity, and harmony across centuries of stone, soil, and sky. Through this closing reflection, the listener comes to appreciate not only the grandeur of South America's ancient civilizations, but also the subtle, patient rhythms that made them possible. The enduring legacy is a testament to human creativity, perseverance, and spiritual awareness, a quiet thread connecting past, present, and imagination. As the mind drifts further into contemplation, the valleys, peaks, roads, and citadels merge into a single, gentle narrative, leaving the listener with a lasting sense of serenity, wonder, and connection to a world both distant and intimately familiar. As our journey through the forgotten empires of South America comes to its gentle close, the mind is invited to linger in the quiet mystery of the Andes. The peaks, valleys, terraces, roads, and temples, now seen only in memory, stretch infinitely in thought, blending history and imagination into a single, flowing narrative. The contrast between the tangible remnants of stone and earth and the invisible human lives that once animated them encourages a reflective stillness, a sense of gentle presence in a world long past, yet vividly alive in the mind. Here, in the soft echoes of forgotten civilizations, the listener can drift slowly into contemplation, absorbing centuries of ingenuity, adaptation, and quiet perseverance. Machu Picchu's misty terraces, the Wari's precise urban planning, and the Tiwanaku's monumental stones merge into a tapestry of human experience that spans millennia. Each empire, with its unique innovations and cultural rhythms, contributes a thread to a larger pattern, woven through landscape, spirit, and labor. The contrast between their monumental achievements and the subtle, everyday practices of farming, crafting, and ritual creates a layered story that soothes the mind while maintaining gentle curiosity. Visualizing communities moving with measured care along terraces, through plazas, or across roads fosters a meditative awareness of the delicate balance between human endeavor and natural rhythm. The roads themselves, the compactness stretching endlessly through mountains, canyons, and rivers, serve as both literal and metaphorical pathways for reflection. They connect distant points across vast and challenging terrain, enabling the flow of goods, ideas, and spiritual influence. The contrast between the endurance of stone paths and the fleeting footsteps of those who traveled them highlights the subtle interplay between permanence and transience, encouraging a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm for the listener. One can imagine chasquis running swiftly with messages, farmers carrying crops, or pilgrims moving in quiet reverence, each journey blending seamlessly with the heartbeat of the land itself. In the valleys, terraces descend gracefully, rivers wind softly, and scattered ruins whisper of daily life, rituals, trade, and communal labor, long after the people themselves have vanished. These quiet echoes remind us that the story of human history is often woven through small acts of patience, ingenuity, and observation as much as through monumental achievements. The contrast between visible constructions and invisible lives enhances both curiosity and calm reflection, allowing the mind to wander gently through time. As the sun sets over imagined peaks, the rhythm of history slows, and each step along terraces and paths becomes a meditation on continuity, adaptation, and subtle mastery of environment. Spirituality threads delicately through this landscape. Sacred mountains, rivers, and celestial alignments inform daily life, ceremonial observances, and cultural cohesion. Even in the absence of explicit records, one can feel the quiet pulse of devotion that connected individuals to their environment and to one another. The contrast between the immovable presence of mountains and the transient nature of human ritual encourages reflection on the interdependence of earth and spirit, fostering a deep, sleep-friendly sense of calm. Imagining offerings made at sunrise or sunset, songs rising softly across terraces, and ceremonies aligned with celestial events evokes a serene awareness that spans centuries. Art and craftsmanship also continue to resonate across time. Textiles, ceramics, stonework, and ceremonial objects reflect a balance of utility, symbolism, and aesthetic precision. The contrast between monumental architecture and the intricate detail of personal items underscores the duality of human experience, grand vision and intimate care existing simultaneously. Envisioning artisans at work, shaping threads, carving stones, or arranging ceremonial spaces invites the listener to engage with history at a slow, contemplative pace, reinforcing the immersive, meditative tone of this narrative. Even as mystery pervades these empires, lost knowledge, unanswered questions, vanished rituals, the uncertainty is not a source of tension, but a gentle invitation for reflection. The contrast between what has endured and what is unknowable encourages curiosity tempered with calm, allowing the mind to explore without urgency. Ruins and roads, terraces and temples carry fragments of stories and lessons, offering a soothing rhythm of discovery that flows naturally into imagination. In this space, the listener may drift effortlessly between history and conjecture, embracing both knowledge and mystery in a tranquil cadence. Finally, as the journey concludes, the listener is left with a sense of continuity, balance, and quiet reverence. The Andean highlands and valleys, once animated by Tiwanaku, Wari, and Inca civilizations, now stand as timeless witnesses to human creativity and resilience. The contrast between past activity and present stillness encourages a meditative surrender, a gentle letting go into the rhythms of history and nature. In this final reflection, the mind may rest, carrying the soft lessons of adaptation, ingenuity, and interconnectedness into the calm of sleep or quiet contemplation. From misty mountain peaks to fertile river valleys, the forgotten empires of South America leave an enduring impression, not merely as ruins or artifacts, but as living narratives that ripple through time. The terraced slopes, sunlit plazas, winding roads, and sacred sites all converge into a singular, immersive memory, one that encourages reflection, curiosity, and tranquility. The contrast between what is visible and what is imagined, what is known and what remains mysterious, creates a layered, hypnotic experience that soothes the mind while honoring the profound achievements of these civilizations. As we drift finally from the Andean highlands into the quiet embrace of the night, the whispers of stone terraces, the soft hum of rivers, and the echoes of ceremonies linger gently in thought. The listener is invited to carry forward not only knowledge of ancient ingenuity and cultural resilience, but also a meditative sense of harmony, balance, and continuity. The forgotten empires, though silent in the present, continue to speak through landscape, architecture, and imagination, offering a timeless lullaby of human creativity, patience, and reverent coexistence with the natural world. In this gentle farewell, we leave the Andes as we entered them, slowly, peacefully, and fully immersed in the quiet mystery of history.